In 1937, you could walk into a store and buy a Sunbeam Mixmaster for $23.75. That's about $500 in today's money. But that wasn't just a mixer. It could peel potatoes, slice vegetables, juice fruit, and even grind coffee, if you had the right attachments. And I have the original dealer price card to prove it. For nearly a century, the Sunbeam Mixmaster has been one of the most recognizable machines in the American kitchen. Millions were made, in dozens of models, across several decades. Many were wedding gifts. Some came from your grandmother's kitchen. Yours may have come from your mom. But whether your Mixmaster is a flea market find or a fully restored treasure from AuntieNin.com, this series will help you figure out exactly what you have. Because every Mixmaster has a story. The earliest Mixmasters evolved through what I like to call the alphabet models. Sunbeam would make improvements to the design, and instead of inventing a complete new product name, they simply moved to the next letter. Model A, Model B, Model C, and eventually all the way through Model K. This machine sits right at the end of the early alphabet series. The earliest mixers had a letter on the gear case plate, right up front, easy to find. Just look for the letter, A, all the way through K. Once the design became a little sleeker, they moved the mark to the bottom on the junction box cover. And the very last models had a service number stamped onto the beater ejector plate where you insert and remove the beaters. The alphabet series was built from 1930 until 1935, ending with this Model K, which means this machine was built almost 90 years ago. The alphabet models are unique in several ways. The first thing you'll notice is the gear case cover. On these early machines, the cover is held on with visible screws. Sunbeam wasn't trying to hide the mechanics yet. This was still very much a machine. That changes starting with the numbered series. Beginning with Model 3, Sunbeam added a decorative housing that covers the gear case. From that point forward, the mechanics disappear under smooth styling. The alphabet models also have a very simple data plate. The model letter, the voltage, the wattage, and the patent numbers. And the company name. Not Sunbeam, the Chicago Flexible Shaft Company. Everything is stamped right onto this plate. Later machines moved toward more complex model numbers and serial numbers, but these early ones are wonderfully straightforward. One letter tells the story. The alphabet models also tell us something fascinating about how the Mixmaster evolved. Through Model H, the switch for the mixer was mounted right here on the base. That meant the motor and the base were wired together. The machine wasn't meant to come apart. But Sunbeam made a major change starting with Model J. The speed control was moved to the back of the mixer itself. That meant the entire machine could now be lifted off the base. Sunbeam added a folding handle, and just like that, the Mixmaster could also work as a hand mixer. The handle even folds out of the way so attachments like the juicer can drop into place. Suddenly, the Mixmaster wasn't just a stand mixer, it was a convertible kitchen machine. By the time we reached Model K, the design is fully established. You can use it on the stand or lift it off and use it by hand. Around the middle of the alphabet models, Sunbeam began to realize something important. This mixer wasn't going to live in a cabinet. It was going to live right on the kitchen counter. Starting around Model F, the Mixmaster was offered in two color schemes. The first was this soft cream finish, paired with jadeite glass bowls, a very popular material for the era. That color was designed to blend comfortably into traditional kitchens, warm spaces with wood cabinets, enamel cookware, and familiar household colors. But Sunbeam also offered something much more modern, a crisp black and white version. This version complemented the new sanitary kitchens that were beginning to appear in the 1930s. Kitchens designed to look clean, hygienic, and efficient. In other words, Sunbeam wasn't just designing a machine, they were designing something people would feel comfortable leaving out on the counter. Because convenience only works if the machine is already sitting there. And once the mixer could be lifted off the stand, Sunbeam realized something else. The Mixmaster didn't have to just mix. It could also power other kitchen tools. Right here on the top of the machine, there's a power hub. That hub allows the motor inside the mixer to drive a citrus juicer. Not just beaters, but real kitchen equipment. But for some applications, Sunbeam needed less speed and more torque, and they needed vertical rotation instead of horizontal. Enter the power transfer unit. With this important accessory, internal gears step down the speed of the motor, converting it to torque. This allowed Sunbeam to offer a surprising number of accessories. You could attach a meat grinder, a slice and shredder, a bean slicer, a drink mixer, a knife sharpener, even a coffee grinder. Now that might sound like a gimmick today, but in the 1930s, ground coffee wasn't a thing. You did it by hand, every day, every time you wanted coffee. Many families were still cooking large meals from scratch every day. Anything that saved labor in the kitchen was valuable. That's why Sunbeam advertised the Mixmaster as something more than a mixer. They called it a complete kitchen machine. They were selling mixers to housewives the same way Farmall was selling tractors to farmers. One motor, many jobs. And if that sounds a little familiar, it should, because the same idea still exists today in machines like the KitchenAid stand mixer. But Sunbeam was already exploring that concept nearly 90 years ago. That brings us back to the piece of paper we started this episode with, the 1937 dealer price card, because that card shows exactly how Sunbeam presented this system to customers at the time. You could buy the Mixmaster by itself, or you could add attachments. A juicer, a meat grinder, a slicer, a potato peeler, and suddenly your mixer was doing the work of half a dozen kitchen tools. That was a pretty compelling idea during the Great Depression, when families wanted tools that could do as much work as possible. And that's why the alphabet models are so interesting. They represent the moment when Mixmaster was still evolving, still experimenting, still becoming the machine we recognize today. In the next episode, we'll take a look at the way American cooking was changing and how Sunbeam was there to help usher in a new American diet.